Hello and welcome to the 2022 Family Town Hall, featuring our acting president, Jeff Bowman, and other members of college leadership. I hope you enjoy the introduction to Kenyon's class. I am Colleen Garland, Vice President for Advancement, and I'll be serving as your moderator this evening. Our division in advancement has the privilege of working with alumni and family members like you to enhance college priorities through your philanthropy. We also work to connect you to Kenyon through events such as this, and of course through the family weekend activities on campus this weekend. If you're able to join us, you'll be happy to know you'll be one of more than 1,400 parents who've registered to attend. I'm not making any promises, but right now it looks like we're in for some really pretty fall weather. We do know that not everyone is able to make the trip to campus, however, which is why we're pleased to offer virtual events like the one we're hosting this evening. So we're excited for you to hear from our acting president, Jeff Bowman. Jeff's a history professor and former associate provost who was appointed to the provost position in 2020. This semester, Jeff is serving as our acting president, while Sean Decatur is away on his long-planned and COVID-delayed sabbatical. We're also joined by Celestino Limas, our Vice President for Student Affairs, who has probably already met your student on one of his many walks around campus. And finally, we welcome Cheryl Hemken, a professor of chemistry and associate provost, who this semester is serving as acting provost. As a reminder, you are all on mute to enhance the audio quality. However, we very much want your questions, and we encourage you to use the chat function where it says submit a question, and we'll get to as many of your questions as we can this evening. So let me begin our program by turning things over to our acting president, Jeff.
Great, thank you, Colleen. I'll just say a few words about like the start of the semester and as I'm occupying this uncharacteristic role. As Colleen explained, I usually am the provost, and I've been at Kenyon for 25 years, and I'm a professor of medieval history, but during Sean's sabbatical, I'm occupying the presidency just for a semester. And this has been a great and interesting opportunity to have all sorts of chances to encounter more alumni and more students than I maybe typically would in my role as provost, and I've been really appreciating that. So I'd first start by saying that one of the things that's really characteristic of the fall of 2022 is that there's a lot of buzzy energy on campus. There's a lot of excitement and activity, and people are very enthusiastic about being back in person. And so it feels like we're approaching something close to normal for the first time in 2.5 years. There are a lot of kind of both in-person classes, but also the more informal and formal events like convocation and the community feast that bring people together in a way that it's been hard to gather in the past 2.5 years, and ways in which are really important to building community at a place like Kenyon. So that's the first thing I'd say, is that this has been very fun. It's been very fun to witness after more than 2 years of kind of struggling to figure out how to make that work with the pandemic. So there's a lot of really good energy on the part of students, on the part of staff, and on the part of faculty to return to something that is closer to normal. It's also probably true that we are not exactly sure what normal is anymore, and that the last couple of years have been really hard, particularly on young people and particularly on students, and that they have lost some opportunities for academic and social opportunities that would have otherwise been there for them. And so we're kind of working to figure that out, like what a new normal looks like in this world. Every year, and particularly this year, one of the great things that is exciting about August or September, the start of the academic year, is welcoming a new class of students to Kenyon and transfer students. And this was no different this year. We had 535 first-year students and 29 transfer students, and they come from 39 states and 20 different countries. And this group is remarkably impressive. They impressed the admission staff with their creativity and their resilience in the pandemic. And as you'll know, most of the first-year students this year spent some significant part of their high school education learning remotely. They got really strong academic credentials. Their weighted GPA is 3.98, their ACT is 32, and their SAT is 1421, so very high scores. And we had a record number of applications last year, 8,635, and a very high yield on offers of admission. So this is all really exciting news because it kind of speaks to the enthusiasm and connection and excitement that these students have about being at Kenyon. And that's kind of evident in the numbers, but it's also evident in the kind of energy on campus and in individual and one-on-one conversations with the students and their families who have come here. And so that's great. And it's one of the things that feels great. I mean, the numbers are important, but you can also sort of feel it on campus. We also have in this incoming group of students made progress in terms of the diversity of the class. 24% of the incoming students in the class of 2026 are domestic students of color. 10% of the students are international. And those numbers are remarkable changes over what they would have been 10 or 20 years ago, where it would have been about 9% domestic students of color and 2% international students. And we've made remarkable strides in terms of socioeconomic diversity. We have more Pell eligible students in this class and as a percentage and as a raw number than we've had a long time. And a lot of that is due to the Kenyon Access Initiative, about which we'll hear more in a few minutes. So that's all really good news about the class, and that's all good news about numbers. But the other good news about them, as I said, seems to be that they actually have brought really a lot of exciting energy to the campus. And if you're interested, you can look back to the recording that's available online of the convocation, where Diane Anstey, our Vice President for Enrollment, talks about some of the personal qualities that really leapt out about the class of 2026. In addition to all those other things, they are above all intelligent and kind and creative, as she pointed out. And so that's available online. You can take a look at it, and it will give you a kind of something about the personal qualities that leapt out to the admissions staff when they were looking at the incoming class of 2026. So another thing that I'll mention about campus is not so much what's going on with the individual students, but it has to do with the places and spaces they're inhabiting, the buildings. So there has been a lot of construction on campus in the past few years, and there will be for a few years to come. We are coming right to the end of a very large series of projects called the West Quad project. This includes a new library, the Chalmers Library, which came online about a year ago. It includes a new building for enrollment and admissions that came online this August, and includes a new academic building, the Odine Hall, which will house history and sociology, political science, and philosophy, and the Center for the Study of American Democracy. And this building isn't finished yet, but will be next semester. So if your students are here now, it's very possible that they will be taking classes in this building in the spring semester of this coming year. That's coming right up. We're on the verge of finishing that building, and we'll be having a dedication ceremony at the end of October for that, where we recognize the dedicatee, the person whose name is on it, Rob Odine, a former president of the college, and some of the people who made it happen. So that project's almost done, but we're also starting on new projects. These include housing projects, a large building project on the south end of campus, sort of near Old Kenyon, which will provide eventually 3 new residence halls, each of which will house more than 100 students. And those will start being available in 2024, 2025, and 2026. And we're also renovating Bexley Hall, which will be ready at the start of the coming academic year if everything goes according to schedule. So this is a major push to improve the overall quantity and like the diversity and the quality of housing for our students. So there's a lot of buzz on campus, buzz because there are all sorts of people around, but also buzz because we're working on completing these construction projects and moving on to the next thing. And we're also, of course, in the early phases of implementing a strategic plan that doesn't just involve these sort of questions about enrollment and housing, but also has implications for the academic program. And we're in the process of hiring new faculty members and enriching some of the programs there. And if questions come up about that later, Provost Hempkin is going to be able to answer those. So I would say that it is a strange job to have to be an acting president for a semester, but it's actually a very exciting and fun one to be here at Kenyon in the fall semester of 2022, where there's just a lot of excitement in terms of the students, in terms of the strategic plan going forward with the academic program, and in terms of things like both building and fundraising. So it's an exciting time here. And of course, as Colleen mentioned right at the start, even more imminently, it's an exciting time because the coming weekend, we're going to be welcoming a lot of folks back with a very intensive program this weekend. There's both men's and women's soccer is playing, and the football team is playing. There's going to be a bunch of presentations by students who did mentored research over the summer. There's going to be the performance of Stage Blood, the main stage drama performance. The Cokes are singing, and so it is a kind of choose your own adventure experience, and it'll be exciting to welcome you, those of you who are able to make it here, and those of you who are not. Well, you're lucky because you'll be exhausted if you came and tried to take advantage of all the things that are going on here this weekend. So with that, I will say thank you to Colleen for handing this over to me. And I think then I pass it over to Celestino. Is that right, Colleen?
That is right, but I'm going to interject and say about you for a minute, Jeff, that for our audience, one of our trustees said to me when Jeff was named acting president, how fortunate we are at Kenyon to have such a deep bench of talent. And I think that is so true. And we're all just having a ball working with Jeff in the acting president role. So yes, you mentioned the Kenyon Access Initiative, which we'll come back to a little bit later in our hour, but we're eager to hear from Celestino Limas about some of the highlights of the student life aspect of campus this fall. So Celestino.
Yeah, mahalo for that, Colleen. Great to see everyone this evening, and it's going to be wonderful to shake your hands here this weekend when you're here on campus. I just wanted to give a quick update on some things that are occurring with all of your students, because we very much so enjoy having them here in our presence, but also it is a joy to watch them grow every single day. So just to give you some updates on a few things. Number one, we are so very proud to be a JED campus, and I just want to talk a little bit about that so all of you can orient yourself to that. So JED campus is something that dates back to 2019 when President Decatur, Senior Director of Wellness Chris Smith, and many others really saw an opportunity to take Kenyon's commitment to mental health to the next level. JED campus has partnered with over 400 colleges and universities as member institutions who have comprehensive institutional commitments to making mental health a proactive part of the campus wellness strategies. So what's really neat about the JED campus approach is they really offer a unique 4-year assessment and implementation approach to amplify what already schools have in place, but then also root existing and future efforts in best practices that positively impact campus culture rather than just simply treat mental health issues that arise. For us at Kenyon, we look at wellness as being a truly comprehensive strategy, but more importantly, mental health is something that many students across many different college campuses in the nation are wanting to make certain that we can not just be responsive, but also preventative with some things. And the best way you can do that is to normalize what it means to care for yourself when it comes to your mental well-being. So we really applaud, I think, every one of our students who are really engaging in this full force. And more importantly, the Cox Center for Health and Wellness, more importantly, has seen a huge commitment to students wanting to be a part of this. So we can talk more about that later if you like, but I just wanted to make sure that I called attention to that because JED Campus really is something that we are so proud of to be a member of this going forward. Now, in addition to that, there are some really neat bright spots that I want to make sure you're aware of. So the first is that we have seen the village of Gambier really embrace Kenyon once again, now that we're getting back into sort of what life is like as you're living with COVID. one of the great things our students have been looking forward to for a long time was the village market. How could it be a little bit more stable and really be open different times? You know, like many businesses, the village market saw a bit of an issue with labor and they couldn't really keep regular hours. So two great proprietors, Betsy and Nick Jones, were able to buy the village market this summer, and they have completely changed that environment. So now, not only is the village market open Sunday through Wednesday until 9 p.m., Thursday through Saturday, it is open till midnight. They have a huge workforce of students who are going to be staffing it as well. And I think the community really has embraced this. It is something that I think has been a long time coming for our students to really feel like they can get back to normal a little bit. And I think the owners have really just jumped into the relationship with what it means to be a citizen of Kenyon and be a part of the village of Gambier. In addition to that, we did see a business locally here, Chilitos, that was right there in downtown Gambier, just behind the bookstore and the deli. They ended up having some of the same challenges with staffing, so they ended up having to leave this summer. But the good news is our friends at AVI have stepped in, and so we're proud to announce to our students recently that Pierce Express will open in that footprint here this coming fall semester. So they're just a few weeks away from launching, but what's going to be great is that place is going to be open until 10 p.m. every night, and then on the weekends, it will stay open until 1 a.m. The great thing about Pierce Express as well, students walk in, they just show their K card and they eat because their meal plan covers meals both at Pierce and Pierce Express. For our students who live on the north side of campus, whether it be the first year quad, the NCAs, the new apps, this is going to be a very, very strong benefit to them, particularly as things get a little bit cold. But for myself and citizens in the village, we can go in and we can eat there as well. We're just paying with cash or credit. So it's going to be a fantastic augmentation to us here, and we're so excited for it. And just to spike the football and how much I think the relationship with AVI has gotten better and why they're great partners to us, you may know that there were some students this past year that were working on a proposal to create a pop-up student run bar to really help provide a safe, but also I think very much so an educational way for students who are of age to be able to consume responsibly here on campus. So AVI took that a step further and said, instead of doing it as a pop-up locations on different parts around campus, whether it be the old tennis courts, the Gun Cannons patio, or Old K, why don't you do it right there in the footprint of Pierce Express? So the students are overjoyed to be actually partnering with AVI on this. So a student-run bar will be opening called Flats inside Pierce Express. So some of our students have been real champions of this, and it has been wonderful to see the liberal arts that Kenyon teaches actually take shape in this venue, because they are learning about the economics of running a business. They are learning about the justice impacts of running a business, and they're learning about the actual sociological impacts of running a business. So this is further testament that great town and gown relations float all boats. So we're really excited about that. Just a couple more things to mention to you. We are very much so excited about the new parking garage that opened up, and the student council actually approached President Bowman, myself, and the other members of senior staff about wanting to understand how they could maybe park in it as well. When it opened, it was designed to actually be for just visitors and employees, but the students expressed an interest and we let them know, let's actually monitor how it's being utilized. And if we are using it the same way that we have been in the past with surface parking, and if you're willing to stick to the rules, let's see if we can't try something out. From 20 August until last week when it opened to students, there were a total of 6 tickets written for students within that space. So it made it very easy for us to compromise with students. And starting this past 7 October, students can park in the parking garage on weekends, and it has been met with significant enthusiasm by the students. It's one more way in which I think students and administration can partner together to make things really special here. Last thing I'm going to mention, the source. There is a fantastic new endeavor that we launched this year to really make certain that for those students who are staying on campus over breaks, but come from modest financial means, they can have access to basically a grocery store on campus at no charge to them. This is something that Dean Robert Hart Ruthenbeck, our Dean for Student Development, really partnered with students and AVI to champion, and we are so excited for what it means to make food insecurity a non-issue when it comes to students here needing to stay on break, because as you know, Pierce has been closed during those breaks. So it's one more way we are being comprehensive about the support we give to our students. And I just can't say enough about the partnership that our students have shown the administration. So I'll stop right there, but Colleen, I'm really excited to talk with parents tonight.
Thanks so much, Celestino. That's a lot of fun and important updates that I'm sure we'll return to. To our guests online, just a reminder that if you have questions, please use the submit question in the chat to submit your questions, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. But now I'd like to welcome Cheryl Hemken, our acting provost, to say a few words about academic life on campus. Cheryl.
Thank you, Colleen, and thanks to everybody for showing up for this. It's very exciting to see you even in video form, but hopefully we'll have a chance to meet face to face this Friday. Anyway, it's great to have this time to share with you all, and I'm happy to report that we've completed almost 7 weeks of class. So the 7-week point is the halfway through the semester. And based on my conversations with faculty and students, and like Jeff and Celestino has said, people are getting back into the classroom with a lot of enthusiasm and joy, and it's really refreshing to see. I would also like to give you a few interesting notes from the academic front. So as the college enters the faculty hiring season, we're actually adding 2 new tenure lines to our faculty. Adding these faculty lines does not come without significant thought and consideration, in part because of the longevity of a faculty career and the concomitant adjustments to the curriculum. So it's really an exciting time to be able to embark on this opportunity. These new faculty would arrive in the next academic year. So one place your student may notice a new face is in the psychology department. Psychology has enjoyed a record number of majors and students with interest in the discipline. So this will be a great addition there. And then another place your student may see a new faculty member is in the newly approved program in computing. So at the end of the last academic year, the faculty voted to add a major in computation, and this year marks the start of that process. Because the process is just starting, we don't expect the first majors in computation to come from the classes that your children are in, but probably in the very near future. However, what your student will probably see in the next few years is a re-envisioning of our computing-related concentration. So a concentration, if you haven't been familiarized by your children, is similar to a minor, only it involves classes that span more than one department. And right now, we have what's called a scientific computing concentration. As you might guess from that name, the name evokes the idea that only scientists use computing. But in reality, our faculty and student interests are all over the place when it comes to computing. We have people in the natural and social sciences that use computing, as well as people in the fine arts and humanities. And so we're trying to lean into this. We want to lean into this, and we want your students to be able to use computational methods to enhance their fields of study, whether that's to learn more about programming in the more traditional sense, or to build and test models of complex systems that might come from environmental science or economics, or to push the boundaries of performance and artistic work. So to that end, in the coming years, we expect to launch a new concentration that can bolster those endeavors. And this is something that your students will probably see in the not distant future. The other thing I would like to say is that this modification of concentration is something we can do that in-house, but to build this major out, we're looking to hire a new founding director in computation. That search is presently underway, and we're very excited to embark on this. To help build this program, we're looking for a person with expertise in computation, as well as a demonstrated interest in leadership, as well as building computation throughout the disciplines. And so it should be a really exciting search, and we're looking forward to that. As Jeff had said, these and Celestino as well, these are really interesting times on campus. There's clear, obvious signs of progress on campus or change on campus when you look at the construction of new buildings. But there's also some less visible, but perhaps more exciting signs of change in the classrooms. And one of the things that I hear most often is that in comparison to last year, everyone is so much more comfortable being together. Our classrooms are places of collaborative work and learning. And this comfort allows our students and our faculty to put their energy towards engaging in and absorbing the lessons of the day. And so for someone in my profession, I don't know that there's a whole lot more that I could actually want out of a year. And that is just an amazing thing. I'm really thrilled. And anyway, on that note of classes, if you're going to be here on campus this Friday, there's a lot of faculty that are excited to have you in class. The coordinators of this meeting and so forth, I think we'll be putting a link in the chat perhaps for the number of open courses that are here that will be open. And so we hope to see you bright-eyed and bushy-tailed on Friday. So looking forward to that. And I'll throw it back to Colleen.
Thank you, Cheryl. And yes, we have the link posted in the chat for the list of classes, and it's just a great opportunity for our families to get a small taste of what our students enjoy every day. As Cheryl mentioned, the addition of computational studies is part of the third century Foundations for Kenyon's third century strategic plan. That plan also will be posted in the link for those of you who might want to learn a little bit more about how Kenyon continues to evolve and adapt as we approach our bicentennial in 2024. One of the other important priorities in the plan is an emphasis on what we call inclusive excellence and the need to cultivate a thriving, diverse community reflective of the diversity in our nation and in our world. We know that your students' experience here is enriched by daily opportunities to interact with people from different backgrounds from their own, whatever that may be. And as part of this, last year, we launched the Kenyon Access Initiative, which is a partnership with the Schuler Education Foundation that includes a $25 million match for these scholarship funds. Already, this program is having a significant impact on our campus. And I'd like to ask Jeff and then Celestino both to talk about how the Kenyon Access Initiative is impacting Kenyon.
Thank you, Colleen. Yeah, so I kind of gestured toward this a little bit earlier when I talked about the incoming students this year, but this is an area where we can take particular and a special pride. We're one of a very small number of institutions that is kind of selected for partnership with the Schuler Foundation. And the Schuler Foundation has a couple of interesting commitments. One of them has to do with access to higher education generally for low-income students and dreamers, but the other one really has to do with understanding the powerful transformation of liberal education and liberal arts education, the kinds of education that we do well at a campus like Kenyon. So this is a partnership where they really understand the kinds of things that we believe that students should learn to go forth and have productive and fruitful lives, to live lives of meaning and consequence, core things about expression and clear thinking and analysis and analytical rigor and clear writing. And they made this match agreement with us where, you know, they would match every dollar of new funding for financial aid in this area, 1-for-1 up to $25 million for a total of $50 million. So this is a great distinction in a bunch of different ways. I mean, one of them is that they really understand one of the needs that Kenyon has in terms of expanding accessibility. They really understand one of the things that Kenyon really does well in terms of residential liberal education. And they have also kind of managed to come up with a program that has really hit a chord with our alumni. And so people have been very eager to participate in this match program, and it's been remarkably successful. And one of the things that this means is that 67 members of the class of 2026 are Pell eligible or DACA students, dreamers, and this is a very high number relative to what we've been able to achieve in previous years, where typically that number has been considerably lower. It's 13% of the class, and 12 of these are really entirely able to enroll at Kenyon because of the Schuler Match and the Kenyon Access Initiative. So it's been great to find a partner, both who recognizes what we do here and recognizes the institution's need to be able to expand inclusivity in the way that we want to, and to see alumni who have been so receptive to this opportunity. So this has been marvelous and exciting news. That the percentages turn out to be something like we've kind of struggled to get above 9 or 10% in this metric for the past few years, and for this year it's 13%, and so that's a significant increase in just a single year, and it's a real thing that both we and a lot of the alumni we've talked to about the way that they can contribute to this change have been very enthusiastic and proud. So it's exciting news.
Thank you, Jeff. And I will say Kenyon donors have responded so well, including Kenyon parents, many parents who have contributed to this as well. So Celestino, I know that the students have embraced this initiative with some creative ideas of their own. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. And I think you just said it really well, Colleen. It is so magical when students appreciate an efforts by the college, but it's another thing when they truly embrace those. I just want to tell 2 quick anecdotes that demonstrate what Colleen just mentioned. So the first is that, as I told you earlier, the students have put together the student-run bar that's going to be opening inside Pierce Express later this semester. But as I mentioned, that was always designed to be a pop-up location this year before AVI stepped in. And part of what we were doing with working with the students on this, the type of liquor license they were securing from the state actually had them function in a way that once they covered expenses, they had to donate any profits to a 501c3 as part of getting the liquor license. And this discussion, when I brought it up to the students, it was literally a 5-second discussion. The only 501c3 that they wanted to donate to was a Kenyon Access Initiative, because they believed as students in the strategic plan, but they understood how things like this help their peers in their residence halls, in their classrooms. So it just really made my heart melt, just knowing that our students are embracing this. And then the other thing that's really topical and fun, so I'm going to give you a bit of an insight into something we haven't told the campus yet, but some of you may remember there used to be an old village market tradition called market dogs. 50-cent hot dog, anything you wanted to put on it. And it was something that alums and students really looked forward to. That went away during COVID. And more importantly, I think as the village market sort of receded into not being predictable in terms of hours, it sort of went into this dark area. But now that Betsy and Nick have sort of revived the village market dogs are back. And so some other students actually took this as an opportunity to bring back a tradition here later on this semester. They're going to have a one-day sale where Betsy and Nick are going to sponsor market dogs coming back out onto Mill Path, old school pricing of 50 cents, but more importantly, all of the money raised by sales is going to be donated to the Kenyon Access Initiative. Again, a separate group of students who really saw a chance to feed 2 birds with the same seed, reviving a tradition, but also making certain that it benefits something right now that benefits students that they're in classes with and those that will come after them. So I just can't say enough, Colleen, about how wonderful our students are. I not only just am amazed by them, but I admire them every single day.
And I do as well. And I love both of those stories. I'm happy to share with everyone tonight that whether it's students, alumni, parents, others, this initiative has really been embraced by the whole community. And we are very close to passing our initial $25 million threshold. We'll look forward to continuing our focus because this priority does not go away, but we're really delighted with the progress to date. So now it's time to turn to your questions. I'll start first with a couple that came in pre-submitted, and let me paraphrase the first one. So Christina asks the president to discuss plans for increasing the school's commitment to the environment. She asks, how can the school accelerate a plan to update buildings to get to a zero impact on climate change? Many other colleges and universities, in her opinion, are well ahead of Kenyon in this area. So I'm so glad, Christina, you posed this question. We have some real progress to share. And let me first start with Jeff, who may bring in some of our other colleagues who are with us this evening. So Jeff.
Yeah, thank you, Colleen, and thank you for the question. If anyone dives into the strategic plan, you'll see that one of the kind of priorities in there has to do with bringing environmental literacy and awareness to the kind of core of the college's mission. And some of that is curricular, some of that has to do with expanding and enriching programs that we already have in, for example, environmental studies. And in fact, one of the other positions that we're adding this year, a tenure track position, is an environmental studies faculty member whose expertise is in regenerative agriculture and farming. But some of it is also in the more technical aspects of managing sustainability on a campus that is as large as ours. So we a few years ago committed to achieving carbon neutrality by the year 2040, and we're currently working in partnership with a firm called Evergreen Energy on developing a plan for this. Of course, carbon neutrality means finding a balance of your emissions on the one hand with your carbon sequestration efforts on the other hand, and there are opportunities for both of those in what we're going to do going forward. I mean, one of the things that is a particular asset for Kenyon is that between our college campus and the Brown Family Environmental Center and the Pete Chase Conservancy, we have in easements or direct control over hundreds or thousands of acres and the immediate surrounding area around the campus that we can think about how to use strategically for carbon sequestration. And we've done a lot of research about this already. Some of the research has been done under the auspices of a couple of faculty members, one of whom is on the screen. So there are two sort of experts on the screen who could talk about this. One of them is the Vice President for Facilities and Sustainability, who also happens to be a parent. So I'm not sure whether he's here as a vice president or a family member. And the other is an associate provost and professor of biology who's led some of the carbon sequestration research with his students and has been part of the planning. So maybe I can ask Drew if you'd have anything else to say about that, Drew Kirchhoff.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. So as President Bowman mentioned, we've engaged with a consulting firm called Evergreen Energy to construct a carbon neutrality strategic plan for getting to carbon neutrality by 2040. Part of what makes Kenyon really unique, as he mentioned, is our land holdings. And with Evergreen, we have a subcontract with an additional organization that's helping us to estimate the sort of carbon sequestration capacity. And this is something that really sets Kenyon's plan apart from other institutions of higher education. As the question mentioned, there are institutions that are further ahead than Kenyon on this. Many of those that have succeeded have done it by simply purchasing carbon credits. And the approach that we're using is quite unique in that it's really focused on both updating the campus infrastructure, which Ian can talk a lot more about, to move towards low carbon alternatives or no carbon alternatives for our electricity and heat and cooling generation. But it's also about actually using the land and tracking the carbon that's actually captured by plants and microbes in the soil on our land holdings. And so we're very excited about it. A lot of the work that's been involved in that, as Jeff mentioned, was done by myself as well as other professors in the biology and environmental studies program, looking at agricultural soils, wetlands, and the forests around Kenyon's campus to figure with our students the accounting that needs to be done. And then Evergreen has completed the preliminary stages of a really comprehensive study of the campus infrastructure, looking at our energy utilization, and they're in the process right now of laying out alternative strategies that we might use to come to carbon neutrality, and eventually the goal being further down the line. Carbon neutrality is one level where your emissions sort of balance out with your offsets and sequestration, but to really move towards what's called a net zero campus is one of the even longer term goals. And I think, as Jeff mentioned, through the Philander Chase Conservancy, which is a college organization that holds easements on local lands that are owned by farmers and other landholders in Knox County, we can actually have an impact that extends beyond Kenyon's campus. And so rather than just moving Kenyon towards carbon neutrality, we can actually work with partners in the community to bring Knox County into a more favorable position. The really exciting thing to me about this is it really is a foundation for Kenyon's third century. It's one thing to pledge carbon neutrality by 2040. That means something in terms of immediate impacts, but really we're talking about doing something new at this organization. Kenyon is an amazing institution that for decades now has always had a balanced budget. We take tremendous care in the construction of our curriculum and the enrollment and recruitment of our students and faculty. And looking at accounting for energy and carbon with that same level of detail and that same level of precision is something that's going to be ingrained into the culture of the institution. And I think it's really exciting. So so that's sort of where we are with it. Ian, do you want to add anything else?
Sure, I might just add a few things. One is, first off, Drew just did a beautiful job of laying out where we're at right now. As an engineer, part of my job is to make sure that what we do is, technically rigorous and is likely to succeed. So from the 30,000 foot view, essentially what we're going to do is, one, reduce the amount of energy that we consume overall. That really has to be step one. And then convert the energy uses that we do have over to renewable sources. And then at the same time, as Drew has outlined, one of the things that sets our effort apart from others that have been tried so far, and there are plenty of campuses that are several years down the road ahead of us, for example, Oberlin. However, we have the distinction of having the land holdings that we do that will allow us to employ the ecological capacity of our grounds, fields, and forests to sequester carbon. And what I find most fascinating is actually not the technical side of this, even though I'm an engineer by profession, is that in the process, we can harness these incredible young people of our campus and our amazing faculty to take, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly part in the process of stewarding our sustainability. And as Drew had mentioned, yes, we're aiming for a point in time and a goal of carbon neutrality by 2040. However, we're really setting this up so that when we get to 2140, the history will have shown that Kenyon was able to sustain its sustainability, if that makes any sense. In other words, set this up so that the community can operate it and it becomes a part of daily life of our community. So I find it incredibly, in fact, I would say, again, despite being an engineer, that if we craft some technical tour de force that finds some incredible ways to save energy and really harness renewable energy for the energy we do need to consume, and we don't engage the community and do a lot of teaching and learning in the process, I would say that we will have fallen far short of our goal. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Christina, for the question, and to Ian, Drew, and Jeff for the thoughtful answers. This is clearly an important topic that is on our minds. The next questions are two that are both sort of related to campus safety. So I'll ask Celestino to weigh in. The first one is from a parent who says, my husband and I have been wondering about campus safety regarding underage drinking. Could you explain Kenyon's alcohol policy and what type of oversight the college provides in the dorms to enforce this policy? And then a separate but related question is about, do we have any plans to upgrade campus safety, including security cameras to deter theft? So Celestino, can I ask you to weigh in on those?
Yeah, sure, of course. So I think the first one related to alcohol use by students. This is something that, of course, every campus is navigating, some better than others. I'm very happy about how we do it. I'll qualify my answer to tell you right now that I'm also the parent of a sophomore college student at a different institution. But really here for Kenyon, the best way I can sort of begin to answer that question is care for our community and adherence to state and federal laws are really the focal points of our approach with this. Very much so, I think we are conscious of the fact that college students are going to experiment with decision-making related to alcohol. But what's a compounding factor are two things. One, our location. We know that we are rural, and unlike schools that may be in Boston or Los Angeles or Chicago, Kenyan students tend to make their own fun. And so therefore, it's important that we educate them very rigorously about the effects of making some of these decisions, because when you're in a location like ours, you need to be mindful of the fact that sometimes students are going to be not necessarily as preoccupied with outside temptations. So therefore, the community and how it actually revolves around itself is your biggest asset in this situation. So how do peers police themselves and make sure that they can support them? But the second factor that I think is very much so true that we are conscious of in a very, very great way is COVID. COVID, I think, really had an impact about separating young people. And now I think as we're learning to navigate COVID, everyone here at the college, whether it be our campus safety folks, whether it be our folks in student affairs, residential life, athletics, chaplain's office, you name it, we are very conscious of the fact that students may be sort of making up for lost time. And how do we help them pace themselves with interactions? That doesn't have to mean specific to alcohol. That can mean about contact. Exactly, in this flu season, it's something that the Cox Center folks are very conscious of. So of course we are doing rounds, whether it be the residence life folks, whether it be campus safety, other folks, we are ensuring that our residence halls are safe, vibrant, but also conducive places to form community and also perform academically very well. But on top of that, I think our approach to our policy and enforcement of it is to make certain that students have resources so they can be well educated before they make decisions about whether or not they're going to consume, so they can be aware of things like, how does a blood alcohol content respond to pacing of consumption? How does food contribute to that as well? We provide that education to all students, not just the ones who are of age, because it would be naive of us to think that underage students aren't going to experiment a bit. So we really take the approach of wanting to provide education uniformly to all of our residential students. And then of course we have support systems in place so that when students do make choices, they're going to be safe and they're going to be cared for. The two things that I would point to sort of as bottom lines on this. Number one, our Student Rights and Responsibility Office is just that. If you notice, I did not call it a conduct office, because we really take the approach that when it comes to students who maybe fell short of Kenyan, peer, state, or federal expectations about how they make decisions, we want to make certain we inform them of what are their rights in those situations, but what are their obligations and responsibilities. One of the things that I'm very proud of, our recidivism rate at Kenyon for repeat offenders is very, very much so low. Depending on the year you're looking at in the past 10, you are looking at low double to single digit numbers. And I think that speaks to how we enforce this, but also how we teach students. But the second thing that I will leave you with in terms of how we approach this, I'm very proud of. Kenyon is very proud to have a Good Samaritan policy. And we do this because when students make choices, we do not want them going into the shadows when they are in a bad way or when someone they know needs help. We want to prevent tragedies at all costs, because your students are the most important thing in your life, and they're the very reason why Kenyon exists. So we're proud of how much students have embraced the Good Samaritan policy so that students can get the help they need in difficult situations. And we approach those and opportunities to, number one, make sure that people are cared for. And then number two, back what I mentioned earlier about recidivism rate, this is a direct product, I would argue, of how much the college wants to partner with them in that situation. Now, Colleen, with that second question about cameras and thefts, things of that nature. So we have made investments in our campus security force, campus safety force over the past several years, not just in increasing the compensation so we can have a higher quality of officer come by, but also augmenting the actual staff in and of itself. The one thing that has, of course, been challenging as we bring on these great new projects, those are more square footage for us to be able to patrol. So the discussion about cameras is something that I'm told, because I arrived last summer, I'm told it's been around the margins for a while. I will say that what I have learned very clearly about the Kenyon community, and more importantly, our students, if we were to go a route of wanting to initiate camera installation on different parts of campus, that is something that would be a campus conversation, because we would not unilaterally do that without strong support and consultation from the members of our community. It would be a step to take. If Michael Swayze, our director of campus safety, were here, who, by the way, we really make certain that we commit to that force. Michael himself is retired Secret Service. So when he and I have briefings, you bet we have nuanced conversations because he is very, very well aware of what it takes to provide safety as your number one priority. The one thing he would say about this discussion of cameras serve a purpose if in fact you have someone watching them. So if we were to go down the road of cameras, and if it were something that were asynchronous where we could use it to refer back to, if in fact a theft occurred with a bicycle rack or a catalytic converter or things of that nature, we would need to telegraph expectations to the community about that. But if in fact we get to that point, something tells me all of you will know about it as well, because I would want parent feedback on that as well. But at this point in time, we don't have cameras mounted externally, but it is something that we get to discuss quite a bit. So more on that later.
Thank you for that very thoughtful response, Celestino. Appreciate it. Our next and likely last question, given the time, is from Kelly, who says, I read at one point that the college was considering a change to its academic calendar to add a January term. Is that going to happen? So Jeff, maybe I'll do like last time. I'll start with you, and then you can bring in others who might also want to speak to this question.
Yeah, sure. I can't say exactly whether it will happen. I will say that one of the things that the strategic plan that we're working with for the coming decade suggests that we should look at the academic calendar and consider altering it in some way that would add some flexibility basically to the configuration of our semesters. Right now, we have two 14/15-week semesters. Those are kind of long by a lot of standards. You will be plenty familiar with other institutions that have J terms or May terms. And so the faculty is currently considering and ruminating on the question of whether or not we should look at having this other format of J term or May term or both of them at some point. And these allow you to do a number of different things. I mean, well, they require you to shorten your semesters basically. And so there'll be some faculty who are devoted to the kind of configuration of the semester that it already is that will struggle with this idea or not like it for good reasons. But if you have these kind of shorter terms, these kind of small terms, J terms or May terms, you can have 3 to 4 week very intensive courses focused on a single thing. You can also more easily manage courses that might involve some travel component, and it's also easier to imagine small courses in this format that resemble mentored research programs of the kind that we do in the summer, or research or rather internships basically. So we think it's worth looking at the question of whether or not looking at other kinds of formats of the academic calendar would enable our students to have more of these high impact practices over the 4 years at Kenyon, whether they give them more kind of career development opportunities and whether they give faculty more flexibility about the kinds of courses that they will teach. But we haven't reached any decision about it yet, and it's unlikely that that will happen in the very near future. So if your student is a first-year student, they will not have to worry about it this year or next year. I mean, the earliest I can imagine this happening would be at least 2 years from now. But the faculty is actively kind of talking about it and considering what the advantages might be and what the cost might be of it too. Yeah.
Thank you, Jeff. One last question that just came in, which probably has a very quick answer, and that is, what is the current enrollment? And I want to say 1850, maybe somebody else has an exact number.
I can have the exact number in a second. So,
and maybe Anne, who posed the question, doesn't need an exact number as long as I am close. But while Jeff is looking, I will just say that for those of you who are familiar with our plan, we do have a plan to grow enrollment. It is to grow enrollment slowly, carefully over time. And that is not exactly how it's panned out. So our enrollment currently is bigger than intended. And Jeff, it looks like you may have a number for us.
Yeah, and this is the typical way we do this in terms of reporting for reasons that have to do with our own understanding of what we're up to, and also representing ourselves to the wider world, has to do with doing a census on the 10th day of classes about all of the students who are actually on campus. So this doesn't include the population that's off campus, but The on-campus census on the 10th day of classes was 1,879 students. That's about 10 more than last year. So we over-enrolled our class again this year. It was large, but it's actually about the same number of students on campus this year as last year.
Terrific. Thank you, Jeff. Kelly, one of our question submitters, thanked us for hosting these sessions. I will turn around and say thank you to all of you for taking an hour out of your evening to spend with us. Thanks to Jeff, Cheryl at Stellacino, and Ian and Drew as well for joining us. For those of you who are coming to campus later in the week, we are excited to welcome you. And for those who cannot make it, we're really glad that we were able to spend some time with you this evening. So have a wonderful evening, everyone.
Good night, everyone.